The sharp crack of the rifle shot rang out across the Coronado Naval Base shooting range, but it wasn't the sound that made Chief Petty Officer John Finn drop his spotting scope. It was what he saw through the lens, a single bullet tearing cleanly through 3 separate targets at 1,000 yards, each hole perfectly aligned as if drawn by a laser. John's mouth fell open in disbelief as he stared at the impossible sight. Slowly, his eyes shifted to the shooter. There, standing calmly, was a young woman in civilian clothes, Rachel, her right hand wrapped carefully in white medical tape. Yet she moved with a quiet confidence, oblivious to the fact she had just done what most expert snipers could only dream of. 2 hours earlier, the early morning fog was just beginning to lift off the California coastline as Rachel arrived at the range. At 29, she carried herself with the quiet efficiency of someone who had mastered making herself invisible in crowded spaces. Her sandy blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and her clothes were deliberately plain. Worn jeans and a faded gray hoodie that had clearly seen better days. The only detail that caught attention was the careful way she cradled her right hand, the white medical wrapping visible just beneath her sleeve. Rachel took a deep breath and settled into position, ready to prove something, not just to the world, but to herself. If you've ever witnessed someone being judged unfairly just because of their appearance, please drop a comment below and share your story. The crack of the rifle shot echoed sharply across the Coronado Naval Base shooting range, but it wasn't the sound that made Chief Petty Officer John Finn lower his spotting scope. It was what he saw through the lens, a single bullet tearing cleanly through 3 perfectly aligned targets, set at 1,000 yards, each hole like it was etched by a laser. His mouth fell open, disbelief freezing him in place. Slowly, his eyes shifted to the shooter. There, standing calm and steady, was Rachel, a young woman in civilian clothes, her right hand wrapped in white medical tape. She ejected the spent casing with a quiet confidence, unaware she had just achieved what most trained snipers only dream of. Rachel had been coming here for 3 months, always arriving exactly 45 minutes before the range officially opened. Thanks to a special arrangement with the facility manager, the rehabilitation program for injured veterans granted her access during off hours. The paperwork listed her simply as R. Morrow, medical discharge, physical therapy authorized. Most assumed she was some kind of support staff, maybe a mechanic or communications specialist who'd been hurt in a vehicle accident. Rachel never corrected them. The range was her sanctuary, the only place where the trembling in her right hand settled, where the nightmares that haunted her sleep couldn't reach. She followed a strict routine. Arrive early, clean her rifle with deliberate precision, using her left hand while her right remained mostly still. Then practice breathing exercises as other shooters trickled in. Today was meant to be no different. Until SEAL Team 7 arrived. 2 black Suburbans rolled up just after 7 a.m. The elite operators, stepping onto the range like apex predators, restrained only by peacetime rules. Leading them was Lieutenant Robert, his squared shoulders and permanent scowl, giving the impression that any moment not spent in combat was a personal insult. The team unloaded their gear, precision rifles, spotting scopes, enough ammo to fuel a small war. "Civvies on deck," muttered Petty Officer James, nodding toward Rachel at the far end. "Why do they let tourists play soldier on military property?" Another grumbled. Robert's eyes flicked dismissively to Rachel, bandaged hand, flinching slightly when a heavy ammo box clattered nearby. Probably some dependent living out a warrior fantasy while her husband's deployed. Ignore her. Today was meant to be no different. Until SEAL Team 7 arrived. 2 black Suburbans rolled up just after 7 a.m. The elite operators, stepping onto the range like apex predators, restrained only by peacetime rules. Leading them was Lieutenant Robert, his squared shoulders and permanent scowl, giving the impression that any moment not spent in combat was a personal insult. The team unloaded their gear, precision rifles, spotting scopes, enough ammo to fuel a small war. "Civvies on deck," muttered Petty Officer James, nodding toward Rachel at the far end. "Why do they let tourists play soldier on military property?" Another grumbled. Robert's eyes flicked dismissively to Rachel, bandaged hand, flinching slightly when a heavy ammo box clattered nearby. Probably some dependent living out a warrior fantasy while her husband's deployed. Ignore her. But John Finn, older and far more observant than his younger teammates, noticed something the others missed. The way Rachel had arranged her equipment wasn't random. It was textbook perfect. Every item positioned for maximum efficiency. Her rifle wasn't a generic sporting model, but a heavily customized precision weapon, worth more than most cars. At that moment, the range safety officer approached the SEALs. Anthony, a weathered former Marine, held a clipboard. "Gentlemen, welcome to Coronado. You've got lanes 15 through 20 reserved. Please be aware, we have another shooter on lane 5 under the medical rehabilitation program. She's authorized to be here." Robert's lip curled into a sneer. Medical rehab? Every small contribution helps. These stories reach the people who need encouragement. Thank you all so much. This is the kind of story that draws you in. Slow enough to build tension, but every moment packed with detail to keep your eyes glued to the screen. Ready for more? Stay with us. A progressive distance drill, starting at 300 yards and stretching out to a full 1,000. For these operators, it was routine. Marksmanship maintenance performed with the same ease as breathing. Lieutenant Robert stepped up first, his confident swagger matching undeniable skill as he punched tight, flawless groups into the heart of his target. One by one, the others followed suit, their friendly competition pushing each to faster times and tighter shots. "Check this out!" Petty Officer James called out, grinning as he nailed a difficult shot despite the gusting wind. "Pure precision, boys. That's how it's done." Their celebration echoed across the range, reaching lane 5 where Rachel was finally ready. She loaded a single round into her rifle, never more than one at a time during rehab, doctor's orders, and settled into her shooting position. Observers immediately noticed something unusual about her stance. Her left leg was drawn up at an awkward angle, and her right shoulder hung lower than standard shooting form suggested. It looked wrong, amateur even. "Jesus, look at that form," one of the younger SEALs sneered. Did she learn to shoot from YouTube videos? But John Finn, watching quietly, went still. That position wasn't wrong, it was specialized. He'd seen it twice before, both times in classified training footage that wasn't supposed to exist. The memory hit him like cold water. The Phantom Protocol, a shooting system developed for operators with specific injuries, designed to compensate for nerve damage while maintaining deadly accuracy. Before he could think more, the crack of Rachel's rifle broke the silence. Through his spotting scope, John watched the bullet slam into the 500-yard target, dead center. Not unusual on its own, except the way she fired. No hesitation, no drift. A perfect trigger break despite the tremor visible in her wrapped hand. She worked the bolt with her left hand, another oddity, then loaded a second round. This time, Rachel shifted her entire body, rolling onto her right side in a position even more awkward than the first. The SEAL's mocking laughter grew louder. "Someone should tell her this isn't yoga class," Robert quipped. "You're supposed to shoot the target, not interpretive dance it." The second shot cracked out. Another perfect center hit, then a third from yet another unconventional position. Every shot was flawless. Every stance defied conventional teaching, and every movement spoke of training so deeply ingrained it had become instinct. John's chest tightened as the pieces fell into place. That ear protection symbol he'd noticed earlier, it was familiar. He'd seen it on equipment requisitions for a unit that officially never existed. Phantom Unit, the military's most elite sniper program. 8 operators handpicked from every branch of the military, trained to push the limits of what was possible with a precision rifle. Legends in the special operations community, until Syria. Until the mission so catastrophic it erased the entire program, sealing it behind classified walls beyond even John Finn's clearance. Rachel's hand trembled more noticeably as she prepared for her next shot. She paused, laying her palm flat on the shooting mat. John watched closely as her lips moved silently, some quiet mantra or focus ritual. Then she raised her eye to the scope and fired again. Another perfect hit at 500 yards. "Lucky shots," Lieutenant Roberts scoffed, though the certainty in his voice was fading. "Anyone can hit paper at that distance," he said. John Finn raised an eyebrow. "Then why don't you show her how it's done?" James chuckled. "Bit of friendly competition might humble our tourist." Robert's eyes gleamed with predatory interest. "You know what? Not a bad idea." Striding confidently toward lane 5, Robert carried himself like a man who had never met a challenge he couldn't conquer. "Excuse me, miss." Rachel looked up from her rifle, her gray eyes calm, unreadable. Up close, Robert noticed the fine scars along her jawline, the kind left by high-velocity fragments, not accidents. But he was too wrapped up in his own superiority to care. "My team and I were wondering if you'd like some pointers," he said with condescending charm. "Your form is unconventional. Maybe if you learned the fundamentals, that shake in your hand would improve." Rachel's voice was quiet, carrying a rasp as if seldom used. "I'm just following my physical therapy routine." Robert's smile widened. Ah, that explains the creative positions. But seriously, you're developing bad habits. How about a friendly wager to motivate you? She started to shake her head, but he pressed on. Nothing serious. Just 5 shots at 800 yards. Closest group wins. Loser buys coffee for the winner's whole team. What do you say? She said simply no. Suddenly, John's voice cut through the tense moment like a blade. Leave her to her training, Lieutenant. But something shifted in Rachel's expression at the word handicap. Her jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. When she spoke again, her voice held an edge it hadn't before. What kind of challenge? Robert, sensing victory, ignored John's warning look. Simple. 5 shots at 800 yards. Closest group wins. Loser buys coffee for the winner's whole team. That's enough, Robert. Leave it, John Finn commanded quietly. But Rachel was already nodding. One condition, she said steadily. We shoot at 1,000 yards instead. The range fell silent. Even the SEALs stopped their chatter, eyes locked in disbelief. 1,000 yards, serious distance. The kind where reading the wind is just as critical as marksmanship. Where even the slightest error compounds into a miss. Robert let out a forced laugh. Ma'am, I don't think you understand. That's nearly 2/3 of a mile. With that hand tremor. Are you refusing? Rachel asked, calm but firm. Of course not. Your funeral, ma'am, Robert replied, preparing for the challenge. James sidled up to John Finn, lowering his voice urgently. Master Chief, look at her gear. He nodded grimly. That ear protection, that symbol, I saw it in Afghanistan, on gear we weren't supposed to talk about. James swallowed hard. I understand, Master Chief, but if she's who I think... John cut him off with a knowing look. Then Robert's about to learn a very expensive lesson about assumptions. The wind had picked up, gusting 15 miles per hour from the west at the 1,000-yard line, enough to push a bullet drastically off course. Robert took his position first, theatrically checking the wind flags and adjusting his scope with confidence. He was good, very good. His 5 shots landed in a group that could be covered by a softball. Impressive shooting by any standard, he said smugly, standing tall. Beat that, he challenged. Rachel moved to the firing line without a word. Instead of the traditional prone position, she did something that made every experienced shooter lean forward. She lined up 3 targets in a row, spaced exactly 2 feet apart. Robert frowned. What are you doing? The bet was for group size, not multiple targets. Rachel's voice was even. I'm giving you a chance to withdraw. 1 shot. 3 targets. All or nothing. The SEALs erupted in disbelief, hitting 3 aligned targets with a single. Bullet at 1,000 yards. Wasn't just difficult, it was near impossible. The bullet would have to maintain perfect stability through each impact. It defied physics and probability. John Finn exhaled slowly. You're serious. Rachel didn't answer. Instead, she closed her eyes for exactly 10 seconds, her lips moving in that quiet rhythm John had noticed before. When she opened them, something fundamental had changed. The tremor was still there, but it no longer mattered. Her entire being focused to a single point of lethal concentration. She took her position, not one of her unconventional stances from before, but something stranger. Lying at a 45-degree angle to the targets, her rifle canted at an odd angle that would have failed any standard. Marksmanship course. Her breathing slowed until it was barely visible. The wind gusted and calmed. Gusted and calmed. And still she waited. Then between heartbeats, she fired. The bullet left Rachel's rifle with a whisper of displaced air. For a moment stretched into eternity, everyone held their breath. Through his spotting scope, John tracked the bullet's path, watching physics bend to her will. The first target was pierced cleanly. The bullet's trajectory somehow stayed true despite the impact. Then the second target, another perfect hole appeared as if by magic. By the time the bullet reached the third target, logic said it should have tumbled, destabilized, failed. Instead, it punched through dead center, leaving 3 perfectly aligned holes like they'd been drilled by a laser. Silence followed. Even the wind seemed to pause in respect. John lowered his scope, hands shaking, mouth working silently as his mind struggled to grasp the impossible. The other SEALs stood frozen. Their earlier mockery vanished like morning mist. No way, Robert whispered, his arrogance crumbling. That's not... Nobody can... Phantom 7, John said quietly. The words hit the group like a physical blow. Rachel's calm shattered. The rifle slipped from her nerveless fingers. Her right hand shook violently. She crumpled forward, catching herself on her left arm. Tears she'd held back for years finally broke free. I'm nobody, she gasped. Phantom 7 died in Syria. With her unit. I'm just what's left. The transformation was immediate. Where moments before stood cocky operators amused at a civilian's expense, now stood warriors. Warriors recognizing one of their own. Someone who'd gone places and done things even they could only imagine. James dropped to one knee beside Rachel. The earlier sarcasm wiped clean from his face. Ma'am, we didn't know. I'm sorry. Rachel's voice cracked, raw and broken, carrying the weight of years of silence. You want to know what happened to my hand? She looked away for a moment, then met his eyes with that same calm intensity. You want to know why the great Phantom 7 shakes like a leaf? She sat back on her heels, cradling her trembling right hand carefully. Because I was too good. Too precise. Too perfect. April 15th, 2018, Operation Silent Storm. 8 of us, the best marksmen from every branch. They called us Phantom Unit because we could reach out and touch someone so far away. They'd never know we existed. I was the youngest. The only one who'd never seen combat before selection. But I could shoot. God help me, I could shoot better than anyone. John Finn moved closer, his weathered face etched with understanding. The other SEALs formed a protective circle, shielding Rachel from the rest of the range. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was a warrior's confession, sacred, terrible. The target was Khalid al-Rashid. Rachel continued, her gray eyes distant, fixed beyond the present. Terrorist commander responsible for 3 embassy bombings. Intel said he'd be at a compound outside Aleppo for exactly 1 hour. Meeting with his lieutenants. We inserted at 0300. Split into 2 elements, Overwatch and Entry. I was Overwatch with Phantom 1, positioned 1-200 yards out. The others, Rodriguez, Jackson, Kim, Torres, Washington, and Davies went in close. Her scope was no ordinary tool. Military-grade smart optics, professional thermal imaging, ballistic calculators developed for special operations. It calculated wind drift, barometric pressure, even the Coriolis effect at extreme distances. It made her the perfect shooter, placing rounds with surgical precision at ranges, pushing the limits of possibility. I had visual on al-Rashid through a window. Clear shot. But Phantom 1 wanted to wait for the entry team to get in position. Standard protocol, multiple angles, no escape. Then I saw something else through that scope. A pressure tank, industrial-sized, right beside where al-Rashid was standing. Thermal imaging showed it was full, probably propane for the compound's generators. Rachel paused, lost in the memory, the weight of what came next hanging heavy in the air. The entry team was still 30 seconds out when al-Rashid suddenly moved. He was leaving early. I keyed my mic. Targets on the move, I called. Phantom 2, Rodriguez, came back instantly. Take the shot, 7, we'll adapt. So I did. 1 round, 1,218 yards, through a filthy pane of glass, into a target walking fast. John Finn finally found his voice. You hit him? A bitter laugh escaped Rachel's lips. Center mass? Textbook perfect! The hydrostatic shock knocked him backward, straight into that propane tank. The bullet punched through him right into the steel. There must have been a pilot light nearby, because the whole place went up. She stopped, gesturing weakly as if words couldn't touch the horror of it. The explosion ripped through half the compound, but the entry team, they were already inside. The weight of her confession settled over the group like a heavy shroud. Every man there had lost friends. But this was different. This was a perfect shot that had turned into a perfect disaster.
6 KIA, Rachel whispered.
Rodriguez, Jackson, Kim, Torres, Washington, Davies. My friends. My family, dead.
Because I made the shot everyone said was impossible.
Because I was too good to miss. Her voice shook. If I'd been a fraction less perfect. If that bullet had hit him anywhere else, they'd still be here. But I was Phantom 7. I didn't miss. I didn't wound. I killed. Robert's voice was rough. That's not on you. You followed orders. You couldn't have known, but I did know. The words tore from her throat. Part of me saw that tank. Registered the danger, but I was so focused on the perfect shot. So proud of my ability to put a round exactly where I wanted it. I could have hit his leg. His shoulder. Anywhere that would have stopped him without touching that tank. But I was Phantom 7. I was built for precision. John Finn's face had gone hard, carved from stone. I remember the after-action report, he said. I heard the whispers. They said it was equipment failure. That the place was rigged to blow. Command couldn't admit their perfect sniper program. had created the perfect disaster. Rachel's gaze dropped. They classified everything. Disbanded the Phantom unit, gave me a medical discharge, sealed records. The shrapnel in my hand. That's from digging through the rubble, trying to find... Her voice broke. Trying to find anything left of them. The doctors told Rachel the nerve damage was permanent, that she'd never shoot again. They were almost right, she said quietly. Almost? James asked. Rachel flexed her trembling fingers. 3 months ago, I couldn't even hold a pencil. The rehab, the biometric sensors, the weird shooting positions you all made fun of. They're all ways to work around the damage. I've had to relearn everything, backwards, upside down, but I can make it work. Because I owe it to them. Her right hand touched her heart. Rodriguez, Jackson, Kim, they're always with me. Every shot I take, I carry them. A sharp electronic tone shattered the moment. John Finn pulled his secure phone from his pocket. His face darkened as he read the screen. We've got a situation. All teams are being recalled. There's a credible threat. What kind of threat? Robert asked, already shifting into operational mode. John hesitated, then locked eyes with Rachel. A sniper. Calls himself Viper. 3 CIA assets dead in the last week. All impossible shots, extreme distance. Intel says he's in San Diego. Possible target is Admiral Rebecca Torres at tomorrow's international shooting competition. The team began grabbing gear. Rachel didn't move. Viper, she said slowly. 6 feet tall. Scar over his left eyebrow. Prefers prone-supported shots even when it's overkill. The room went still. You know him, John said. Dmitry Vulov, Rachel replied flatly. Ex-Spetsnaz. Went mercenary after his unit broke up. He was at the compound in Syria. Al-Rashid's nephew. He's been hunting Phantom unit members ever since. Phantom 1, last year. Made it look like suicide. Then you're going into protective custody, Robert said firmly. He's not here for me. Rachel stood, her trembling hand steadier now. He's here for Admiral Torres, because she signed off on Operation Silent Storm. Then he'll come for me. That's how he works. Take away what you love first. Make you suffer. Then finish you. The competition's tomorrow, John said quickly. Thousands of people. Multiple buildings. Too many angles to cover. You won't have to cover them all. Rachel began breaking down her rifle with cold precision. Viper has a tell, always takes his shots at exactly 1400 hours. Some old Spetsnaz ritual. And he'll choose somewhere meaningful, tied to our history. He'll want me to know it's him. John studied her. You sound like you're planning to be there. Admiral Torres has 3 daughters. I've already cost 6 families their loved ones. I won't add another. With respect, ma'am, James said. Your hand, it'll tremor. Could fail you when it counts. Rachel zipped the rifle case shut. But I'm still Phantom 7, and Phantoms don't miss when it matters. That night, Rachel sat alone in her apartment, the air heavy with ghosts. 6 photographs lay spread across the kitchen table. Young faces, forever frozen in time. She loaded 6 rounds for tomorrow, each one etched with a name. Rodriguez, Jackson, Kim, Torres, Washington, Davies. If Rachel was going to face Viper, she'd do it carrying her fallen team with her. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. But she knew the style immediately. Master Chief Anthony gave me your contact. Team's planning Overwatch for tomorrow. Could use a real sniper's input. John Finn. She almost smiled. From mockery to respect, all in one morning. But respect wouldn't stop a 7.62 round to the skull. She typed back, tell them to watch the water tower at grid. 24631, 1400 yards. From the Admiral's stand. High elevation. Multiple escape routes. It's where I'd shoot from. The reply came fast. Where will you be? Rachel's eyes dropped to the 6 photographs spread across her table. Her friends. Her family. Forever young. Where I need to be, she sent. The next morning broke clear and cold, perfect shooting weather. The San Diego International. Marksmanship competition. Pulsed with life. Banners snapping in the breeze. Camera crews darting between firing lines. The crack of rifles echoing across the range. Competitors from every corner of the globe had gathered, each hungry for the title. The next morning broke clear and cold, perfect shooting weather. The San Diego International. Marksmanship competition. Pulsed with life. Banners snapping in the breeze. Camera crews darting between firing lines. The crack of rifles echoing across the range. Competitors from every corner of the globe had gathered, each hungry for the title. At exactly 090, Admiral Rebecca Torres arrived. Her security detail was tight, but not suffocating. men and women scanning the crowd with quiet intensity. They were good, but they were looking for the wrong kind of threat. Viper was anything but predictable. Rachel was in position long before dawn, not at the water tower, but at a half-finished construction site, 450 yards, from Admiral Torres's viewing stand. If she was right, Viper would expect her team to be watching his obvious perch. And at 13:58, she was proven right. Through the shimmer of afternoon heat, she saw movement at the tower, a figure in maintenance coveralls, his motion smooth, deliberate, efficient. The scar slicing across his left eyebrow confirmed it. Dmitry Vulov, Viper. Her right hand trembled as she chambered the first round. Rodriguez. The tremor grew as she settled into the unorthodox, firing stance the others had mocked the day before. But Rodriguez's voice echoed in her head. Trust your instincts over the manual. She matched her breathing to her heartbeat, letting her pulse slow. Through the glass of her scope, she watched Viper work. Calm, surgical, the kind of patience only a true killer possessed. 3:59 and 45 seconds. 15 seconds until he fired. 15 seconds to either save a life or lose her own. The wind teased the range. Gust, lull, gust again. The nerve damage in her hand fired like static through a radio. But between the shakes and the quiet space between heartbeats came moments of perfect stillness. She just needed one. Time stretched. She could see it all. Viper's finger tightening on the trigger. The Admiral laughing at something her aide whispered, utterly unaware that death was reaching for her from 3,000 feet away. Two choices, fire at Viper now, or try an impossible intercept, bullet meeting bullet in midair. She chose a third. Her shot cracked through the stillness, the round slamming into Viper's scope. The glass exploded, shards slicing his face. His rifle twisted away just as he fired, his round plowing harmlessly into the dirt. He staggered, blood streaming from one eye, weapon ruined. Security was already closing in. SEAL Team 7, led by John Finn, burst from cover, right where Rachel had told them to wait. Viper turned, scanning the horizon, and found her. Nearly a mile away, his one good eye locked onto her through the chaos. His lips formed two words she could read without hearing. Phantom 7, next time, but Rachel knew there wouldn't be a next time. Minutes later, the FBI had him in custody, along with files that could dismantle the Shadow Network hunting former Phantom Unit operatives. Admiral Torres was whisked away, never knowing just how close she'd come to dying. Rachel stayed prone until the all clear, then broke down her rifle, her hands still trembling. They would probably always tremble. But today, when it mattered, she'd found the stillness. Rodriguez would have been proud. Her phone buzzed. A message from Anthony. Outstanding work. Phantom 7. Team wants to buy you that coffee. You in? She stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, just Rachel. And yes. That evening, the ocean breeze carried the scent of salt into a small beachside cafe. The men of SEAL Team 7 sat around her, not with the guarded skepticism of yesterday, but the quiet respect of warriors who had seen the real thing. To absent friends, John Finn said, raising his cup. To absent friends, they echoed. And for the first time since Syria, Rachel spoke their names aloud. Rodriguez, Jackson, Kim, Torres, Washington, Davies, Chiffon. The sun dipped low over the Pacific, drenching the water in gold and fire. The light reminded her of the Syrian desert at dawn, only without the grit of dust in her teeth, or the taste of cordite on the air. One by one, the others left, leaving her alone on the cafe's weathered deck. A gull cried somewhere down the coast. Waves hissed against the shore. She closed her eyes and let herself feel it. The weight she'd carried for 5 long years. Not peace. That might never come. But maybe, just maybe, the first trace of acceptance. When Rachel opened her eyes again, the golden light had deepened, rich and heavy, the kind that makes the Pacific look like molten metal. Out there in the shimmer where the horizon blurred into the sea, she saw them, 6 shadows, standing in formation, just like they had before every mission. Rodriguez with that crooked smirk, the one that always came before a joke to cut the tension. Jackson solid as granite, a man you could lean on when everything else was falling apart. Kim, light on her feet, eyes bright with that restless, brilliant energy. Torres, the quiet anchor, offering wisdom without ever needing to raise his voice. Washington, whose laugh could break through the darkest moments. And Davies, methodical Davies, hands checking his gear one last time, even at the gates of hell. The nightmares would keep coming. She knew that. They would turn her sleep into battlefields. where she took that perfect shot, again and again, only to watch them fall in slow motion. Her hand would always shake, a permanent reminder of the price of perfection. But she would keep shooting, keep serving, keep carrying them with her through every mission, every target, every pull of the trigger, because some memories aren't a burden. They're the oath you never stop taking.